Hello guys, welcome to the 14th episode of Lumion 10 tutorial. As you can see, I've prepared a scene for this episode and we want to talk about open layer render and renders with high quality. And we want to explore lighting more in this episode. First thing in order to put a light is when I'm clicking this side, we have three different lights. We have a spotlight, is for the lights that have angle, like projector light and those type of light. You can see the array of the light. We also have something called omnilight, which is usually used to fill the environment. And when you use them, it will generally lighten up the area. So with this, you don't only light up in a specific area. And the third type of light that we have here is area light, which is like softbox in photography, which the source of light is rectangular or just an array of light. And as you can see, this one can give you a very good highlight to your project. Usually when I want to use a light in my environment, which I haven't prepared before, I'm usually using this type of light. You can increase or decrease the light here, you can change the light here, change the color of the light, and fall off is usually shows how much light will travel in your environment. So with fall off you can limit the light or make it more dense. And with this one you can change the angle of the light, which I prefer to use rotate for that one. In my opinion, rotate is better for that. Let's remove this for now. And as you can see, I used area light for these parts as well. So I'm going to place the surface on up. I use rotate 90 degree. I will limit the surface of the light. We can show the source of the light as well. We can copy the same thing vertically and use the same thing bottom. You can rotate it and make it face downwards. And as you can see, it wouldn't be bad if you place it a little lower so we can see the source of the light. If it's a little hard to control the placement of the light, we can work with numbers. Now it's okay. Like that. If the lights are okay, if the lights are not what you want, you can hold Control, select both of them, and change the settings of the light. In this part, we're going to use some spotlight. Let's see which one will give us a better result. And by selecting this one, you can adjust the cone and make it smaller or bigger. Let's increase the brightness. And night activation is for the night, and the light will only turn on the light. So if you don't want to have the light to be turned on during the day in your render, you can choose this option. Let's adjust the shadow now. Preferably we place it on dynamic or high. The quality is better. But when you want to have your render, this will increase the time of render by a small amount. And for the upper layer, we're gonna place some lights as well. We can use the one at the bottom, we hold Alt and place it there. And if you see inside our building, I've placed some area light. Let's reduce the yellow just a little bit. And now let's review our render to see what we can get from it and talk about open layer render more. We click on photo. We open a new scene, so we edit it from the beginning. The first part, which was the most important part, was how to get the angle and capture a good angle. And angle is very, very important. I can even strongly say it's about 40% of the quality of your render. We take a shot and FX, we make the camera 2-point, so it's 2-point perspective. We make sure that the lines are vertical. Make sure that the building is placed on golden points. Let's go to custom style and choose realistic. And one of the most important thing in getting a render alongside having a good angle is the angle of the light. So we can have a good shadows on the building. So for now we keep it as it is. We go to advanced and let's place the reflection on high. Let's choose other surfaces that will have reflections on them. We can even choose the ceiling to have a little reflection on it, and even the floor. Let's press OK. And I think reflections are good enough for now. So when we adjust the reflections, if you wanted to, we could go on materials again and increase reflection. Though, as we said, in previous episodes. You only do that when reflections is not meeting up to your expectation. So we take a shot here. It's fairly decent. I think if we go back a little bit and make the foreground look like this could be better. I'm trying to make the angle completely vertical and horizontal, so the render looks professional. And in effects, we can activate and select the skylight. Now let's see the skylight on surfaces and reflections. Let's place some shadow and use some ultra sharp shadows. But at the same time, if you want to use soft shadow, you need to put the quality on medium. I will use soft shadow for here. We can make the shadows lighter or darker. And coloring will determine how cold or warm the shadows will be. And if I remember correctly, you should make the shadows for your exterior warmer. Let me adjust brightness. This is good. And ominous shadow is usually used for the corners around here. It's usually the shadow in your ambient, and it will give you a good result in your render. Let me get a result. I think render is fairly decent. Let me make the shadow lighter and test it again. Let's go to render photo. And here, when we have additional output, we can separate material ID. This one will separate the sky. And this one will separate lighting map and the specular reflection. We'll select the map, and this one will separate normal map, and the last one will separate depth of field. And let us save it here. And make sure to create a new folder for your render to not mess things up, because this render will save in multiple layers. Usually programs like Corona, V-Ray, 3D Max, and similar type of program, all of them usually you can separate your render elements, and separating them will help you to get a better result later on, and to be able to work on a specific material or a specific color and change the settings inside other programs, and to have more control over layers and environment in your design. And as you can see, this one is getting a depth of field. When you render depth of field separately, something good happens, because you can insert this inside Photoshop and turn it into depth of field that you could have with camera here. And as you can see, we have our render like that. So this is light map, this is depth of field, this is material ID, then it's normal surfaces, and sky alpha, this is specular, and you have each one of them separately. And there is one thing important to show how we are able to use them. Let us insert our main render inside Photoshop and drag all of them and bring it on this picture. So when you're working on post-production, you don't usually use all of the layers all together. But let us test now to see how we can work on them. And the thing is now, look. So we bring sky alpha and depth of field. We open them separately on the top. Let's go on lighting. If I place this one as a soft light, see how much it's changing the light. And we can use Ctrl L to change the levels. And we can edit the light in our render. After that, we even took it. So it really gives you an open hand to edit your render after that you took it. And as you can see, very easy, we're doing it without reducing the quality of the picture. Let's use this one to change the color of the light or make them warmer, or however we like it. And as you can see, this could have a very dramatic effect. It's the same story for a specular. We place this one and, for example, let's see which one is the best for specular. We place it on the screen and you can see the shining parts in the specular. And here you can increase the amount of shininess in those areas or make them lower and make them darker. And as you can see on stone and areas that are made of iron, you can give it some shininess and choose that parts. Look at before and after. Maybe these changes look small, but they have a really dramatic effect. After that, we stack them up together. The lighting, I don't think this one is very good. You can change the color to make it go back to normal. We could remove editors and do everything again. Again with Ctrl L, we can edit it. The mixture could be something nice. So we've just added lighting from this part. We could use mask and change the light in some areas, and in some areas just leave it as it is. Let's go to Material ID. Pay attention, this is very, very, very useful material part. So how we can select glass. Right click, magic wand, and color range, and like that you can select your glass. We need to deselect this tree. Hold Alt and like that deselect it. So if we create a copy on background like this, we can separate our glass. We can place it on the lower layer and we can edit it. So right now we are just making changes to our glass. And as you can see, very easy, we can just make changes to the items and textures in our render. Like that. Again, let's go to Material ID and select this stony area here. And now we press Ctrl J, create a copy from it, and with Ctrl L or Ctrl U or Ctrl B, we can change the setting for this layer. Again, here I want to edit the surface underneath our ceiling. Ctrl J, create a copy, and repeat the same process for this one as well. And as you can see, part by part, we are making changes to this render. And for normal map, if you pay attention, all of the surfaces that are facing towards you are purple. All of the surfaces are looking towards the sky are green. All of the surfaces underneath ceiling, they're all in one color, and other surfaces as well. So it's something like that. And if we choose color range again, I can select all of the surfaces that are facing towards me. And we can create a copy. And we can now increase the lights on the surfaces that are facing towards me. So here we can edit surfaces considering their way that they're facing. And before we edit further, let's press Ctrl Shift Alt and E to merge them all together. In a skylight, you select Magic Wand and Color Range, and you can select all of the black areas. And if you mask here, it will separate background for you. Just right now, your sky is removed, and you can put another sky here. So let's do it again to be able to see it again. So we go on Sky Alpha, right click on this one, color range, select black, and on the main layer you can select mask. And as you can see, it's separated that area. In order for you to understand it better, let me open another picture. And let's bring background for that. Probably get some white dots on it that we don't like, but we're gonna use it anyway. make it go to the lower layer, and as you can see, super easy, we've just changed the background of our project. And you can place anything in that background. But using, for example, this depth of field is a little different from the rest of them. Let me delete the sky that we've placed there. And in filter, let's go to blur and choose lens blur. From source, let me see. But before we do that, let us test the technique. In calculation, we can here place depth of field in these two areas. And prepare mask and plus OK. So now we have a mask from this part. This is not a necessity, and there's some easier way. But let's test this to see how it will be. And in filter, let's go to blur. If we could do it normally, we will do it. But if it didn't work, we'll do it with a simpler technique. So select them, and now let's go to filter again. And yeah, and from here, the calculation that we've just made, it places it here. And you can adjust the amount of blur that you want to have in your environment. And determine where you want to have focus specifically. So if I'm clicking in our foreground, the building will be blurred. And if I click on the building, background and foreground will be blurred. You can change this even manually from here. Like that. Let me repeat the same process with you guys. We press Ctrl Z to go all the way back. So you need to be sure to place depth of field there, and on your image we use calculation. We select depth of field here, and here we press mask and we press OK. And when you enter channel, you have a alpha. We turn it off and we select the rest of them. We go back to layer, we select main file, we go on filter, blur, and lens blur. And in source, we select alpha. And here you can just manually focal length, and you can zoom in and out and blur everywhere that you want. And the amount of blur that you want to have, the density of them, you can change it here as well. Let's press OK and see before and after. As you can see, it's completely blurred out. So the main purpose is for you to have more control on your render. And with open layer renders, you can have more control on your render and you can edit any place that you want. And as you can see, when we turn it on, it's a little better. Let's press Ctrl J, place it at the top of the others, and do another edit. One of the really good things that they recently added to Photoshop, but before you could use that as plugin, is camera filter. Here we can increase the light generally, change the contrast a little bit, and work on each one of these options. Increase or decrease highlight. We can reduce the shadows a little bit, increase the white, and make the blacks to be more dense. And in texture, as you know, when we increase it, we can see more details. In clarity, the same thing. But remember, don't do it more than 8 or 7, because it will reduce the quality of your image. And haze is the fog that you will add in your image. We can reduce the saturation, and in the next part, we can control highlights, light, and dark areas. Make the shadows a little lighter. Increase sharpness, and in luminance, we can reduce the noise of the picture a little bit. And it wouldn't be too bad if you reduce the noise a little bit. And here we turn the red to be a little more red. And in hue and saturation, we can change the colors of our yellow inside our environment to have more red. Greens to be more yellowish green. And we could change the color of sky. And in saturation, we could increase the blue a little bit so we can see the sky better. And in luminance, we could make some colors to be lighter and they can be a little glowy. So we had our render till here, and look at before and after. And these two renders looks completely different. When we activate mask, we press Ctrl I. With a white brush, let's just start brushing with 10% opacity and mix the other image with this one to get the good out of both worlds. And this render that we've got here now is a middle ground between those two. So if we change like this, we could have a really good outcome. And a small crop can even make it better. I think this render is really good. Let's save this one. And let's check before and after. So this was our main render, and this is after edit. And as you can see, it's got more detail and it looks more alive. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode trying to create some open layer render and edit your outcomes and develop your work like that. Stay well.